welcome to UAT Time within the United Countries special by First Ukraine. You can find us on the frequencies available on our website, firstuat.com. I'm Sergey Velichanskiy.
And I am Olivier Vedrine. UAT Time is dedicated to bring Ukraine and Europe closer to each other by introducing the real Ukraine to the rest of the world.
As of today, we join a world campaign, Let My People Go. 25 Ukrainian citizens have been illegally detained and kept on the Russian territory at this time. 25 is the number of people that we know of. Could there be more? You can never be sure when dealing with Russian-backed terrorists. You can find more info under the hashtags Free Savchenko and Let My People Go. So today we will discuss the perspectives of the Minsk agreements. As we know that on April 7th, a group called Continental European Union Club presented their report on Minsk agreements.
Our guest today is Ilya Ponomarev, a member of the Russian Duma in exile.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
It's been, what, five months from your last visit?
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
And now we're here again.
Yes. First of all, what has happened during that time? With you, with your, being in the States, or were you most of the time?
Actually, I'm more and more of my time here in Ukraine.
Okay.
Because what I was working at bringing more foreign investments here in the country is starting to work, and the projects are starting to pay off. And I think that by the summer, if everything goes smooth, we will see some of the very high-profile investment deals here in Ukraine.
Unfortunately, we don't have such an easy situation with our government and with the corruption, and we have our Prime Minister submitting resignation
this weekend
to the Parliament, but by the time we don't know the results yet. So.
The previous government actually, speaking cynically about investment, has done everything to make all the assets very cheap.
Yeah.
And so that's why foreign investors whom I am talking with, they're greatly interested right now in Ukraine, because they understand that eventually, at the end of the day, Ukraine would start to grow. But right now, we are at the bottom. And with the changes of the government, which are forthcoming as we speak, we think that the recovery would actually start, and probably initially small, but some progress would be achieved. And that's what we are telling investors, and I think that's something which makes it to their hearts and hopefully wallets.
Yes, okay. Well, now let's get down to our main topic today is the Minsk agreements, because you are part of that Continental European Union Club. Okay, you are there as well, and there are a couple of Ukrainian
Alexander Kara, Volodymyr Polevoy, Olga Kornisova.
So we did cover a couple of issues, a couple of
with Alexander Kara, we did
Alexander Kara on that
last Friday.
So what, in a nutshell, what is that report about?
The report is about the fact, which has not been widely recognized in the West, that almost the lone beneficiary of Minsk agreements is Vladimir Putin. And it's very popular in Ukraine to say that it's Russia which is not honoring Minsk agreements. To my mind, the situation is right the opposite. Putin is trying its best to enforce Ukraine to grant and to honor Minsk agreements. But the fact is that they are written in the way that every single step of these agreements assumes that DNR and LNR, those people republics, have to be recognized on the political level as the subjects of Ukraine politics. And of course, this is against of Ukrainian interests. This is something which would lead to the collapse of the statehood of Ukraine. This gives Putin a lot of leverage over Ukrainian politics, and this is something which has not been seen in the West. Because what they see, they are working with President Poroshenko. President Poroshenko was forced to sign these agreements under the serious threat of military defeat, as we know, in Debaltseve, which eventually happened anyway, and he tried to prevent it as hard as he could. That's why he, working as an interface, basically said that, yes, okay, we can go along those agreements, and now he has to stick to this line, which he originally chose. And he is getting stuck between two lines of fire, from within Ukraine and from Russia.
And also, you agree, and this is a key point, the Western countries and our Western leaders really don't understand what's going on. Don't understand what's going on. They don't understand the psychology of Putin, and they don't understand the target of Putin in this Minsk agreement. This is really our mistake in the European Union.
I would say that maybe it's even worse, because, yeah, I would say that majority simply do not understand. They don't care. They are consumed with their problems, you know, in their countries, on their territories. But some do understand, and some do want to get back to business as usual with Russia. Very cynical. It's all about energy primarily. And Ukraine is the country where most of them do not have any real serious economic interests. While in Russia, they do have those interests.
This is a key point, the economic interest, because in France and in Germany, this is really what they are thinking now. And in France, they want to maybe delay some sanction, and they want to delay the financial sanctions. And why? Because yes, some are very cynical and they want to go back to business, and they want to solve this Ukrainian crisis, and they don't take care about the price to pay for Ukraine.
Absolutely, and the Minsk agreements give them a very easy and convenient way how to justify to this reversion to business as usual. Because at the end of the day, they would say, okay, so Ukraine is not performing well on the reform side, you know, Minsk agreements are not being implemented as it was originally planned, so, okay, forget about it, you know, we are just returning back on track with Russia, and gradually it would subside. And this is exactly the stake that Vladimir Putin is betting on inside the country. And this is something which he tells to Russian elites, and that's how he gets them consolidated around himself, preventing the revolution in the country.
That's why these Minsk agreements, those Minsk agreements, because we have Minsk 1, Minsk 2, are very bad. Are very bad for Europe and for Ukraine. For Ukraine at first.
You know, more and more we hear that we shouldn't have been signing those agreements in the first place. But definitely there were some situations at that point that, you know, did force Poroshenko to show some progress in some negotiations. And right now, considering that your report that you have written right now pretty much shows that the Minsk agreement is not a success, right?
Not at all.
Okay.
It's a success, but for Putin.
Okay. Yes. Well,
It's a success, not for us.
And we know, you know, playing in the game with him, he can't play win-win. He has to play win-lose. So we lose with the agreements. Now, recently, a new ignition of a conflict between Azerbaijan and Armenia took place. And we're talking about another agreement that was signed 20 plus years ago. And I think it was in Minsk again as well.
It was
in Minsk as well.
Yeah, you're right.
20 plus years ago, some sort of peace talks that froze the conflict. And to recap, a similar situation pretty much, you know, a territory of Azerbaijan was taken by rebels or separatists, of Armenia, right? And so, and now it ignites again, and now the new shelling, a new conflict, a new victims and
you know, the story is very funny, because I know very well Azerbaijan. I was in 2008 and 2009 in Azerbaijan, but now I am persona non grata in Azerbaijan because because I was for press freedom, and I did a speech about press freedom, and from this speech I am no more invited in Azerbaijan. But I know very well, and I have a big link with the diaspora of Azerbaijan abroad, who are in the opposition also. and they are not surprised about this new conflict, can I say?
Well,
No, I'm not surprised at all, as my prediction was for last 3 months that something in Azerbaijan would blow. Not because of Russia, by the way, because of internal Azerbaijani reasons, because the significant economic decline after the collapse of prices of oil, the country was really at the verge of revolution, and I think that Azerbaijani leadership actually refueled this old conflict to distract their own population and you know, to make them busy with some military exercise and with external enemy. You know, this old trick, you know, Vladimir Putin is also doing all the time. But I think that what we really should focus is that exactly it was the very similar attempt by international community to freeze the conflict. Yes, even symbolically in the same place. And this conflict was frozen for like 20 years without any serious fights or anything. And still it was refueled.
yes.
And do we want the same fate for Ukraine? I don't think so. And for Ukraine, this territory is way more populated than the territory of Nagorno-Karabakh.
Yeah.
Exactly.
This territory is way more important for Ukraine. This territory is way more industrialized.
Yeah.
This territory is way closer at the end of the day to the borders of European Union. So this territory is way more strategically important than this territory of Nagorno-Karabakh. And still we are falling in the same trap.
Yeah, and you are right when you say that Azerbaijan is an oil republic. And this republic is in the hand of one family, Aliyev family. And that's the result of the decreasing price of the oil. That's also the result for me of a global Putin policy, because we talked about before that you think, and we all agree about that, that maybe in few months, maybe in few weeks, we can have such crisis in the Baltic state, and we talk about also the Kaliningrad, and I think now we will assist in some global strategy. Donbass, Azerbaijan, maybe one day Georgia again with South Ossetia, and maybe the Baltic state with the Russian minorities.
No, the more instability around Russia would be, the more distracted the Russian population would be from their problems inside the country, from the economy, which in Russia is very far from being in a good shape.
How far can you go with creating, you know, distractions and problems?
You know, Putin is not thinking
years,
about like far horizons. He's thinking about here and now.
Okay.
And that's what he is doing.
Yeah.
And he is very successful at that. And he needs right now to survive through the parliamentary elections of 2016 on to presidential elections of 2018. So for him, the critical year is 2017, when from one side the leadership in the United States will change, from other side he needs to make all the principal decisions on how he would run for his next term, if he will. And I don't think that, by the way, right now the decision is taken already. I think that still there is a scenario when he would make some kind of swap with another placeholder. I think it's pretty much a possibility. But it's all very much dependent on how those conflicts will go, what would people inside the country think and feel, you know, what would be the position of the international community, United States and European Union, you know, so all of that.
I think you are right, because for me, Putin need some wars to stay in the power. That's true. And more he will have those wars on the border of Russia, more he will stay in the power. Because for the propaganda of these people. And this is also true. For me, Putin, and you are right, has no strategy. This is a short view policy. And step by step. That's why when the leaders of the West say that Putin is a big strategist, no. He's only used some tactic, and very basic tactic, to stay in the power only and step by step. I think, you know, this man has no plan for maybe to the end of 2016, but 2017, I am not sure he already know what he will do.
The last time we talked, you mentioned that Putin is using our weaknesses.
Yeah.
So, and I asked a question back then, and I guess that's something I want to ask you, Ilya. But can he create situations where we will be weak, or he's just taking advantage of the weaknesses? So the issue is he manipulating the situation where, you know, the countries suddenly feel weak or act weak, or he's just waiting and is talented in noticing those weaknesses?
Of course, you know, to create new weaknesses, you need to use the existing ones.
Yes. Okay.
So, and this is something that people are being trained at KGB school. You know, identify the weaknesses of your opponent and manipulate him in doing something you want him to do. And the countries are no different because countries are run by people. And if you understand those people, you can always trick them. You know, sometimes you bribe them, sometimes you force them, you know, sometimes you blackmail them, you know. And especially when people are selfish by their motivation, they're easier to manipulate. And especially Ukrainian elite, which is extremely selfish traditionally during the last 25 years. That's why it's very easy to manipulate. While the West is generally very much self-consumed and driven by their own interests. Manipulate everybody who is around is becoming a very easy target.
And you are right. We have to face a strategy of, can I say, secret service way of thinking. That's mean manipulation. You must you love a lot of lies, and you know, in military school you have a lot of courses about manipulation, how to use weakness, and how to give money, when to give money, and.
Well, and especially if we're talking about KGB, that's one of the.
But all the secret service, you know, they have the same tools.
You know, there is a very famous in Russia phrase that Vladimir Putin wrote in his first book when he was just coming to power. He wrote that the weak are being beaten. And that's his life principle. And I think this is the lesson, actually, that here in Ukraine, people need to learn.
That's
because,
why
this is the language he understands.
This is the language he understands, but also it's really true. And Ukraine is trying to maneuver all the time between different powers and to align itself with different powers. But Ukraine is the country large enough and potentially powerful enough to be on its own. And one story, when you are becoming a member of a union, member of an alliance, from the position of being strong. Another story, when you are trying to become a member of certain union from a position of being a beggar.
Yes. Actually, in our recent interview with the representative from the European Union here, he did stress an interesting thing, that the association agreement did not require Ukraine to cut off all the trade or business agreements with Russia. Only the customs agreements, but not just business, regular business contracts and stuff. So sometimes I think that there are some people that, you know, are trying to pull different strings to get a certain society support. And so now if it's beneficial for them to say, you know, let's cut all the business, everything with Russia, because that's what Europe requires. And a lot of people say, yeah, let's go, let's do that.
Like, come on, it's a mutual push. Firstly, it's Russia which is doing a lot of those things.
Yeah.
It's Russia who is saying, okay, you are with Europeans, then you are not with us.
This is
That's the first thing. Okay. Yeah, of course, Ukrainian government has done some stupid things as well. Like, for example, you know, cutting the air travel between Russia and Ukraine, which I think is extremely stupid, because that is something where Ukraine is benefiting more than Russia. Because Ukraine, at the end of the day, is a transportation country, is a logistic hub, and the more you cut logistical routes, the worse it is for Ukraine. But generally speaking, I wouldn't blame Ukraine from doing this. That's a result of Russian pressure.
Okay, all right. Before you ask your question, I want to let you know that you can find us on the Facebook. It's not that easy. Facebook.com/, No, it's not that difficult, actually, or easy. Whatever. If you can type, facebook.com/first channel or facebook.com/UAT time. Find us and let us know what you think.
Yeah, you know this. We received a few days ago the first secretary of the EU delegation in Ukraine, and we saw that I am agree with you that the Russian propaganda is very efficient to disturb the truth. But I want to come back to European Union and to our European leaders because you say that Putin say that use a weakness of us. And in our postmodern society, we always think about a win-to-win result. And this is, I think, you know, the problem of the negotiation. Because for Putin need a loser, and this loser or those losers, they have to lose everything. In our way of thinking, we think we can win together, and this is the big problem to speak with Putin. And now in the EU, what's happened now in the EU? We have this Netherlands referendum. Okay, this Netherlands referendum, I apologize, but this is nothing. That will not disturb Ukraine to be closer to EU. But this referendum, the result of this referendum is using now by the Russian propaganda to disturb the European Union. And why? And I did an interview for a French newspaper last week. I say, come on, the journalists are guilty. Why they are guilty? Because they don't show the truth. This referendum is not a referendum against Ukraine, and that will not stop the process.
Well, as far as I understand that, definitely it's not going to stop the process for Ukraine. We have our own problems, but it will definitely cause a lot of issues within the European Union. That's the...
there will be issues for cooperation of Ukraine with the European Union, because at the end of the day, this referendum is crucial for getting visa-free travel and stuff like that. But
it was an advisory referendum.
That was not. Yes, that's not.
But so what?
Legal.
But so what? Yes, the referendum was like an advisory. But can you imagine Western government which would go against their people when they said something? I wouldn't.
Yeah, 27 EU state members are for this treaty with Ukraine. 27. The last one was the Netherlands. They did a referendum, and this referendum has no impact on the process. So what?
Olivia, I really hope so, because I really think that Ukraine, as well, by the way, as Russia, should become part of one European family of nations, and that we all are Europeans, and we should be as such.
Yeah.
But I really think that democracy is all about procedures and mechanisms. And when this whole European Association Agreement was negotiated in the first place in 2013, I was warning that it will result in a major disruption and a major chaos and in a major economic decline of Ukraine, not knowing that, it would be fights, Maidan, the war, just because of the way this agreement was constructed. Because nobody from Ukrainian elite actually paid attention how the agreement is constructed, about what's really going on inside the European Union. It was not paid enough attention. And this Netherlands referendum was just one of the perfect examples of this unprepared movement. And you know better, you are European, than if the similar referendums would be held in other European countries. I can make a bet that Netherlands would not be alone to vote no.
Yeah. Gentlemen,
we were not prepared. That's the problem. We were not prepared.
Let's leave it at that. And I want to spend the final 30 seconds. So, the Minsk agreement, what is the solution? Can we just tear that paper off and cancel it, or what's the solution? What do you think? After you've written the report, now what are the next steps? What do you think should be done? Or everybody can say, oh, this is a bad idea, but...
I think that solution is here in Ukraine. Solution is in Kiev. Solution is not in Berlin. Solution is not in Paris. Solution is not in Washington. Solution is here in Kiev. Ukrainian elite should lead. Ukrainian people should voice their opinion. Ukraine should make their choice, not somebody else. And we should forget about all the international agreement and treaties. You know, Ukraine was already betrayed with the Budapest Memorandum, and that's the cost of this war, and that's the indication of how serious those agreements are. Forget about them. Economy, better life for Ukrainians, and peace in Ukraine.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I think Ukraine has to stop to wait from abroad the solution for his own interests. And this is in the hands of the Ukrainian government to solve this crisis and to renegotiate a new agreement with Russia.
Thank you very much. Thank you for being with us. It was United Country UAT time by First Ukraine. Our guest was Ilya Ponomarev, a member of Russian Duma in exile.
Olivier Vedrine and Sergey Velichanskiy were working for you in the studio. Stay with us and we will show to you the real Ukraine.
Thank you for being with us. Have a good day and see you soon.